Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening up a file that, frankly, it looks deceptively light.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the cover, it is all bubblegum pink, glitter, and chihuahuas.
It looks like something you might find in a time capsule from the early 2000s.
Right, buried next to a Tamagotchi and maybe a glitter pen. But if you actually read the case files, or, in our case, the production history, the legal analysis, and all the cultural impact studies, you realize we are dealing with a heavyweight.
We are talking about Legally Blonde.
Exactly.
It is the ultimate Trojan horse of cinema, isn't it?
It really is.
You think you're getting a disposable chick flick, and by the way, that term itself is something we should probably unpack later.
Oh, sure.
But you're actually getting a fairly sharp satire on class, on gender, and the American legal system.
It's a film that was dismissed by almost everyone before it came out, and yet here we are, decades later, treating it like a serious cultural object.
Oh.
And that is exactly our mission today. We are going to strip away the brain candy label that critics slapped on this movie back in 2001.
Right.
We want to understand the mechanics of how this film was built, the bizarre reality of its origin story, and then we are going to put the film on trial.
I like that.
We need to know, is Elle Woods actually a good lawyer, or would she be completely disbarred in the real world?
We have a great stack of sources for this. We are pulling from the detailed production archives that cover the script development, including, the original novel.
Yeah.
We have the watch-along commentary transcripts, which give us that modern, sometimes slightly cringed-out perspective on the 2001 tech and diversity issues.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And we have legal critiques from actual attorneys who have just dissected Elle's courtroom strategy.
So grab your scented resume, make sure it's pink, and let's get into it. So I want to start by setting the scene, because context is everything here. The movie was released on July 13th, 2001.
Right. And to understand Legally Blonde, you have to understand the landscape it landed in. This is pre-9/11.
Yeah.
It is pre-social media as we know it. I mean, the internet existed, but it wasn't the internet yet.
It was a different world.
It really was. And if you look at the laptops in the lecture hall scenes in the movie, you have to pay attention to the Apple logos.
Wait, what am I looking for? I don't think I ever noticed.
They're upside down.
No way.
Yeah. In the early Power books, the Apple faced the user when the lid was closed, so it looked right to you. But Apple hadn't really thought about product placement yet.
So when you opened it...
When you opened the lid, the Apple was upside down to the audience or to the camera.
That's hilarious.
Apple eventually realized this was kind of a branding nightmare, and they flipped it. But in Legally Blonde, it's a perfect time capsule of that clunky, chunky early 2000s tech.
It's also a time capsule of a specific type of girl power feminism, isn't it?
Definitely. It's what we might call choice feminism now. But at the time, it was sort of a reaction against the grunge, the cynical 90s. It was saying, I can like pink and be smart. But what most people don't know is that this whole fish out of water story wasn't just a Hollywood invention. It happened to a real person.
This is Amanda Brown.
Correct, Amanda Brown. And the irony is, in the movie, Elle famously goes to Harvard.
Right.
But the real Amanda Brown, she went to Stanford Law School.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the image of the fish out of water is so central to the movie. Amanda Brown was essentially living the Elle Woods life.
100%. She was obsessed with fashion. She was obsessed with Elle magazine, which is where the character's name comes from.
Of course.
And she lands at Stanford in 1993, which I imagine is a very, very different vibe from a fashion magazine editorial meeting.
A completely different vibe. Stanford Law in 93 was a very serious, very academic, and kind of an aggressive environment. And she is completely alienated.
Right.
She wrote about going to a meeting for the women at Stanford Law, and she was expecting like a sorority vibe, right?
Maybe some wine and cheese, a chance to meet some girlfriends.
And
Instead, she walks into a room of very intense, very angry political activists.
Yeah.
She famously recounted that the woman leading the meeting had spent 3 years petitioning the university to change the word semester.
To what?
To Ovester.
Ovester.
Okay, why?
Because semester sounds like it has semen in it.
You're kidding?
I am not. It was a linguistic protest against the patriarchy rooted in the etymology of academic terms.
That is a level of linguistic activism that is just ripe for comedy. I can see exactly why she felt out of place.
It creates this perfect clash of cultures.
Yeah.
And that clash between the Ovester crowd and the girl with the scented resume is the engine of the whole story.
Right.
So Brown started writing letters home to her parents just to cope with the isolation. She was documenting the absurdity of her peers who took themselves so incredibly seriously.
And those letters became the manuscript.
They did. I read a detail about the manuscript that I absolutely love. It connects to how difficult it is to get noticed in publishing. She didn't just, type it up on plain white paper.
No, and this is crucial. This is maybe the most Elle Woods part of the whole story. She wrote the manuscript on pink paper.
Wow.
And she used a pink furry pen. Now, usually when you send a manuscript to an agent, it ends up in what they call the slush pile.
Right. For you listening, if you don't know, the slush pile is basically the graveyard of unsolicited manuscripts at an agency. It's a literal stack of paper that interns usually just shred or ignore.
But Amanda Brown's manuscript was a pink brick in a stack of white paper.
And it stands out.
It literally stood out. An agent at a boutique agency saw this pink thing sticking out of the pile, picked it out of pure curiosity, started reading it, and realized it was gold.
It's such a meta moment. The packaging, the pink, is what got her in the door, just like Elle Woods uses her own distinctiveness to get noticed at Harvard.
It proves the movie's point before the movie was even made.
It really does.
And it sparked an immediate bidding war. Studios and publishing houses went crazy for it on the same day. MGM bought the movie rights instantly. But, and this is huge, but MGM did not want the movie that we saw.
What were they looking for? Because Legally Blonde is pretty wholesome, all things considered.
They wanted American Pie.
Oh, of course.
You have to remember, late 90s, early 2000s, the raunchy teen comedy was the biggest genre in the world. American Pie had just made a fortune.
Right.
So MGM saw the pitch. Blonde sorority girl goes to law school, and their brains immediately went to wet T-shirts, frat parties, nudity, gross-out humor.
That is so depressing to think about. A version of Legally Blonde that is just a series of frat jokes.
It is. The first draft of the script was described as edgy and raunchy. It was full of adult zingers and innuendo.
Wow.
But the screenwriters, Karen McCullough Lutz and Kirsten Smith, they fought to pivot. They saw the potential for a classic underdog story, not a sex comedy.
They wanted to write a movie about overcoming adversity.
Exactly. And to do that, they actually did their homework. I read that they kind of went to law school themselves.
They did what Amanda Brown did, but as spies. They visited Stanford Law School and spent 2 days just eavesdropping on orientation. They sat in on criminal law classes. One of the writers admitted she was bored to tears in constitutional law.
I can relate.
And that boredom actually made it into the script. Those scenes where Elle is zoning out or shopping online during a lecture, that's real writer fatigue.
It grounds the satire in reality. It's not just law school is hard, it's law school is incredibly dry if you aren't wired for it.
Exactly. So they have the script. Now they have the impossible task of casting Elle Woods. And honestly, looking back, it seems impossible that anyone other than Reese Witherspoon could play this role.
Oh, totally.
She is Elle Woods. But that wasn't the consensus at the time, was it?
Not even close. This is a classic case of Hollywood typecasting. At the time, Reese Witherspoon had just starred in a movie called Election.
Oh, Election. If you haven't seen it, listeners, you have to.
Oh.
But her character, Tracy Flick, is intense.
Tracy Flick is essentially the anti-Elle. She is ambitious, yes, but she is cutthroat, she's shrill, she's aggressive, and honestly, she is terrifying.
It's a brilliant performance.
A brilliant performance, but it was too good.
People thought that was her real personality.
The head of MGM looked at Reese and saw Tracy Flick. He refused to meet her. He called her a shrew.
A shrew. Wow.
He thought she was repellent. He explicitly said, I don't want that woman in my movie. He just could not see past the character she had played.
So how do you overcome that? How do you convince a studio head that you aren't the character you just played?
You hustle.
Oh.
Reese's agent called the studio head and begged for a meeting, and then Reese was given very specific and frankly quite sexist instructions.
What were they?
Dress sexy.
That is dark, but also, unfortunately, not surprising for 2001.
It is the reality of that era of casting. She had to go in there and perform a personality audition. She put on the Southern California accent. She wore the outfit. She talked about sororities.
She basically played Elle Woods in the room to erase the memory of Tracy Flick.
She had to audition just to get the approval to audition. It was a whole process.
But she wasn't actually a sorority girl in real life, was she?
No. She was a dropout. She dropped out of Stanford, ironically enough, to pursue acting, but she was never in a sorority.
So how does she get the character so right?
She treated the role like an anthropological study.
Jane Goodall with a Prada bag.
Precisely. She went to dinner with sorority girls in Beverly Hills and just observed them. She watched how they ate, how they talked, how they interacted with each other, and she made a key discovery that basically saved the movie.
What was that?
She noticed that the real sorority girls weren't mean. They were incredibly polite.
Mm-hmm.
They were supportive of each other. They complimented each other's shoes. They valued female friendship above all else.
That is the secret sauce of the movie. If Elle was mean, or if she was just stupid funny, we wouldn't care about her.
Exactly. Reese realized that if she played Elle as kind, unrelentingly kind, the audience would root for her. It's the difference between laughing at a dumb blonde and laughing with a smart woman who happens to be blonde.
She brought a warmth to the character that wasn't necessarily on the page.
A huge amount of warmth. But it's worth noting who else was in the running for this. Because there is a multiverse version of this movie that stars Britney Spears.
Oh, wow. I could almost see that.
There is. Mark Platt, the producer, really wanted Britney. And you can see the logic from a studio perspective. She was the biggest pop star on the planet in 2001.
The ultimate blonde icon.
She was the definition of blonde icon. But the writers vetoed it.
Why?
They needed an actor who could carry the emotional weight, the breakup scene, the humiliation in the classroom, the moment she almost quits. Those require serious acting chops.
Right.
They didn't think Britney could handle the dramatic range needed to make the audience cry with her.
And Christina Applegate. I heard she was in the running.
She was offered the role, but she turned it down.
Why would you turn that down?
She had just spent years playing Kelly Bundy on Married with children. She was terrified of being typecast.
Ah, the dumb blonde track.
Exactly. She didn't want to play another one. She was trying to rebrand herself. She has since said it is her biggest career regret.
I bet. It's the role of a lifetime.
Mm.
Let's talk about the visual language of the film for a second. We keep saying pink, but the commitment to that color palette was intense.
It was obsessive. The costume designer, Sophie de Rakoff, and Reese actually debated this. They went and visited the sororities and realized they needed a signature color.
Mm.
They considered lavender. They considered light blue.
Lavender Woods. It just doesn't hit the same way.
It doesn't. They realized that pink was the only color that signaled unapologetic femininity.
How so?
Well, if she wore blue or green, she kind of blends in. Pink is an assertion of space. It's aggressive in its own way. It forces people to look at her whether they want to or not.
And the hair. I heard a rumor that the hair had its own shooting schedule.
The hair that ate Hollywood. That's what the director, Robert Luketic, called it.
Seriously.
Seriously. Reese has 40 different hairstyles in a 96-minute movie.
That's insane.
It's a costume change or hair change roughly every 2 minutes. They were obsessed with flyaways, those little loose hairs you get.
Why the obsession with that?
Because Elle's hair is her armor. When she is confident, it is perfect. It is pristine. When she is vulnerable, it changes. It had to be perfect to show that she was in control of her image.
Speaking of physical comedy and control, we have to deconstruct the bend and snap.
A cultural phenomenon.
It really is. It's a meme before memes were a thing. But it wasn't in the original script.
No, not at all. It was a B-plot problem. The writers were stuck. They needed a way for Paulette, the manicurist, played by the wonderful Jennifer Coolidge.
She's so good.
She's amazing. They needed her to interact with the UPS guy she had a crush on. They didn't know how to bridge that gap. Should there be a robbery? Should there be a crime?
A robbery feels like a very different movie. Put the money in the bag.
Right. It didn't fit the tone at all. So the writers are in a bar in LA brainstorming and probably on their second or third round of drinks.
Mm-hmm.
And Kirsten Smith just stands up in the middle of the bar and says, "What if she doesn't move?" And she demonstrates this awkward bend and snap.
And the entire bar presumably stared at her.
Probably thought she dropped a contact lens. But it worked. It was a moment of pure, drunken improvisation that became a fully choreographed musical number.
Wow.
And Reese Witherspoon says that to this day, it is the #1 thing fans ask her to do. She will be 90 years old doing the bend and snap in a nursing home.
I believe it. Let's shift gears to the plot, because while it's a comedy, the structure is actually pretty tight. It follows a classic quest narrative.
It is. The setup is crucial because the motivation is not noble. This is something people forget.
Well, yeah.
Elle doesn't go to law school to help people. She doesn't go for justice. She goes out of spite.
She wants the ring.
Yeah.
She expects a proposal from Warner Huntington III.
He's got the hair. He's got the sweater tied around his neck. He's a senator's son. He's the whole package. And he breaks up with her.
And the reason he gives is just brutal.
It's crucial. He says he needs a Jackie, not a Marilyn.
Jackie Kennedy versus Marilyn Monroe. The wife versus the mistress.
The serious versus the frivolous. It is a devastating insult. It's telling her that she is good enough to date, but not good enough to marry, not good enough for his future political career.
And that spite is what drives her to study for the LSAT.
It is, and she gets a 179.
We need to pause on that number for a second.
We really do. The LSAT is scored from 120 to 180. A 179 is in the 99.9th percentile.
So it's a near perfect score.
It is a score that essentially guarantees admission to any law school in the country. It establishes immediately that Elle is not just smart, she is a genius. She is intellectually superior to almost everyone in the film, including Warner.
But then she sends in the video essay, the bikini video in the hot tub.
Which brings us to our first legal hurdle in our little trial here.
Right. Is that legal? Or even possible?
Well, it's not illegal, but it is impossible. You cannot just upload a .mov file to the Harvard admissions portal, especially not in 2001.
It was all paper application.
Right. But strangely enough, this has influenced reality. Students at Harvard Law have reported that the admissions office actually plays that clip during orientation now.
That is fantastic. Life imitating art.
It really is.
So she gets in, she arrives at Harvard, and we get all the fish out of water tropes. She brings her dog, Bruiser, she wears pink. But the pivotal moment for me is the internship. This is where the movie shifts from a rom-com into a legal drama.
It's the Brooke Wyndham case. Brooke is a fitness instructor accused of murdering her much older, wealthy husband. And this is where all the themes really coalesce. Brooke has an alibi, but she refuses to use it.
Because she was getting liposuction.
Right. And to Brooke, admitting that her fitness empire is built on liposuction is worse than going to jail for murder.
Which is a commentary on the impossible standards of beauty.
Exactly. And Elle is the only one who understands that logic. The male lawyers think it's absurd. They want to force her to testify. Elle understands it as a kind of code of honor.
It's a shared language of women who were judged by their appearance. She keeps the secret.
She respects the integrity of the secret. But that solidarity is tested by the real villain of the piece. And it isn't Warner. Warner is just a dummy.
Yeah, he's just clueless.
The real villain is Professor Callahan.
This is the #MeToo moment of the film, years before the movement.
It is. Callahan is the mentor, the father figure, the legendary lawyer, and he hits on Elle.
He puts his hand on her leg.
And makes it clear that he hired her for her looks, not her brain. It's just this incredibly predatory moment.
It is such a gut punch scene, because up until then, you think she is finally winning. You think she's being accepted into the club, and suddenly she's reduced to an object again.
She almost quits. She packs her bags. She is leaving. And this is where the character of Emmett steps in.
Played by Luke Wilson.
Right. He's the junior partner. He is the one who tells her not to let Callahan define her worth. It's a crucial intervention. He reminds her that she earned her spot.
So she stays. She takes over the defense because Brooke fires Callahan. And we get to the climax, the perm.
The ammonium thioglycolate.
I practiced saying that 3 times before we started recording. Ammonium thioglycolate.
It's the checkmate moment. The stepdaughter, Chutney, claims she was in the shower when the gun went off. That's her alibi for why she didn't hear the gunshot.
But her curls were still intact in court.
And as Elle Woods, a connoisseur of hair care, knows,
You cannot wet your hair for 24 hours after a perm.
or you risk deactivating the ammonium thioglycolate. It's simple chemistry. If she had showered, her hair would be flat. Her hair was curly.
Therefore, she did not shower.
Therefore, she was not in the shower. Therefore, she heard the gunshot.
It creates a logic trap she can't escape.
It does. But it's presented as feminine knowledge, the movie is saying. Knowing about hair care is just as valid and just as analytical as knowing about torts or contracts.
It's a different kind of data, but it solves the case.
It's Sherlock Holmes, but with a blow dryer.
Precisely. And Chutney breaks down and confesses.
And scene.
Now, we all know the ending. She wins. She dumps Warner, calling him a complete bonehead, which is so satisfying. She becomes valedictorian and she gives the graduation speech. But that wasn't the original ending.
No. And this is a fascinating insight into audience psychology. Originally, the movie ended on the courthouse steps.
Walk us through it. What happened in that version?
Elle wins the case. She walks out of the courthouse. She kisses Emmett. It's a big romantic moment.
Okay.
Then it cuts to a year later, where she and Vivian Warner's now ex-fiancé have started a blonde legal defense club.
That sounds cute. A little cheesy, maybe.
Test audiences hated it.
Really?
They absolutely despised it.
But why? It seems like a happy ending.
Because it reduced her entire victory to romance. The audience had spent 90 minutes watching her prove her intelligence. They watched her struggle, study, and outsmart every single person.
And they didn't want the reward to be, she got the nice guy.
Exactly. They wanted the reward to be she succeeded professionally. They wanted to see her as a lawyer, not just as a girlfriend.
That is a huge distinction.
Yeah.
It shows that the audience respected her ambition more than her love life.
Which is amazing for 2001. So MGM ordered a reshoot. They needed a new ending. But there was a massive problem.
What was it?
Reese Witherspoon was in London shooting The Importance of Being Earnest. She had cut her hair short for the role. And Luke Wilson was shooting The Royal Tenenbaums.
Oh, no.
And if you've seen The Royal Tenenbaums, you know Luke Wilson has a shaved head and a full beard in that movie.
So they have no hair?
They have no hair. So if you watch the graduation scene at the end of Legally Blonde, which is the new ending they wrote, look closely.
Right.
They filmed at a Dulwich College in London, pretending it was Harvard, and both of them are wearing wigs.
No way.
Right.
I have never noticed that.
Luke Wilson is wearing a wig. Reese Witherspoon is wearing a wig. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Luke Wilson's hairline looks suspicious. It sits a little too low on his forehead.
I am never going to be able to watch that scene without staring at his forehead now. Thank you for that.
It's movie magic holding on by a thread. But that speech, where she tells the class to have faith in themselves, that is what cemented the movie as an empowerment anthem.
Yep.
It was worth the wigs.
It was. Okay, so we've established the narrative works. The emotional arc works, but this is deep dive, and we have to face the music. We need to talk about the law.
The trial begins.
Is Legally Blonde legally garbage?
We consulted several sources on this, including the famous breakdowns by the YouTuber Legal Eagle and other legal scholars, and the consensus is yes.
Oh.
It is mostly garbage.
Let's list the charges.
Yeah.
Where does the movie fail the legal test?
First count, the timeline. The movie completely skips first semester exams. For any lawyer listening, that is the most traumatic, sleep-deprived part of law school. It's the crucible where they break you down. Elle just breezes past it to get to the fun internship. It makes law school look deceptively easy.
Okay, that's a misdemeanor. Second count.
The unauthorized practice of law. This is the big one. This is a felony.
The Paulette scene.
The Paulette scene. There is a scene where Elle helps Paulette get her dog back from her awful ex-husband. She storms into the trailer park, throws around legal jargon like equitable estoppel, and intimidates him into giving up the dog.
She wins, though. She gets the dog back.
She wins the dog, but she commits a crime. She is not a lawyer. She hasn't passed the bar. In the real world, representing a client like that, even informally, could get her barred from ever becoming a lawyer.
Wow.
It is a massive ethical violation. You cannot act as an attorney if you aren't one.
Okay, and the trial itself. A first-year student cross-examining a witness in a murder trial.
Highly illegal, just completely impossible. There is a rule in Massachusetts Rule 3.03 that allows law students to appear in court under supervision. But only third-year students. A 1L, a first year, would never, ever be allowed to speak in a murder trial. The judge would have shut that down immediately and probably held her in contempt.
And what about the surprise confession? Chutney just breaking down on the stand.
That is pure Hollywood fantasy. In real trials, we have something called discovery. Both sides know exactly what the witnesses are going to say before they step into the courtroom.
Right. You do depositions.
You take depositions, you review evidence. Surprise witnesses essentially don't exist. If a lawyer tried to pull a gotcha moment like that, the judge would likely declare a mistrial.
So legally, it's a fantasy. But does that even matter?
I would argue it doesn't, not for what the movie is trying to do. It isn't a documentary about legal procedure. It's a movie about the feeling of law school, and it captures the terror of the Socratic method perfectly. That scene where the professor calls on her cold and kicks her out for not being prepared.
Yeah.
That is real trauma for every law student. That part is 100% accurate.
And it clearly didn't discourage people from going into law.
Quite the opposite. This film created what is known as the legally blonde generation.
I've heard this phrase.
It's a real thing. We found sources quoting countless female lawyers who say they went to law school because of Elle Woods. Reese Witherspoon says it's the #1 thing women tell her on the street.
It changed the image of who a lawyer could be. You didn't have to be a gray-suited, serious shark.
It validated the idea that you can be unapologetically feminine, you can love fashion, you can be bubbly, and you can still be the smartest person in the room.
It broke the binary of smart versus pretty.
Exactly. It showed that intelligence doesn't have a specific look or a specific personality type.
However, looking back from today, the movie isn't perfect. We have to be honest about that. Our watch-along commentary source pointed out some things that feel pretty dated now.
Oh, absolutely. It is a very, very white movie. If you look at the Harvard scenes, there is almost zero diversity. There isn't a single Asian student with a speaking role, which, statistically speaking for Harvard Law, is basically impossible.
And the gay character.
The gay or European trope.
It's a very funny song in the musical, but in the movie,
Oh.
feels a little different now.
It relies on stereotypes. It plays into this idea that being gay is a punchline or a puzzle to be solved by fashion knowledge. The last season Prada shoes clue.
Right.
The commentary noted that the film exists in a time before woke, is how they put it. It has good intentions, it's not malicious, but some of the execution feels reductive today.
For sure. We should briefly mention the franchise because Elle Woods didn't stop here.
Unfortunately. We have Legally Blonde 2, Red, White, and Blonde.
Is it as bad as I remember?
One of our sources calls it, and I quote, the most disappointing sequel in history.
Ouch.
It takes Elle to Washington, D.C., but it loses all the charm. It becomes a cartoon. She literally wears a Jackie Kennedy pillbox hat made of pink material. It misses the nuance of the first film completely.
But the musical was a hit.
The musical is a triumph. It actually premiered on MTV. I remember when MTV did things like that.
Vaguely.
They had a reality show to cast the lead actress. It leaned into the campiness and is very, very beloved by fans. It keeps the spirit of the original alive.
And now we have a prequel series coming.
Elle, coming to Amazon Prime in 2026, it's supposed to explore her high school years. So the character is still very much alive in the cultural zeitgeist. We aren't done with the Woods family yet.
So let's zoom out. Why are we still talking about this? Why does a movie about a girl with a pink furry pen still matter almost 25 years later?
I think it's because it's a story about integrity. Think about it. Elle never really changes who she is.
That's true.
Throughout the movie, everyone tells her to change. Warner tells her to be serious. The professors tell her to be serious. The pressure from day one is to become a Jackie.
To conform. To fit into the Harvard mold.
Exactly. But she wins by being a Marilyn. She wins because she knows about perms. She wins because she's empathetic enough to keep Brooke's secret. She refuses to conform to the male-defined version of power.
She succeeds on her own terms.
Completely.
And that message, that you don't have to kill your personality to be successful, is timeless. It applies to law, to tech, to any field where you feel like an outsider.
It's the ultimate validation of authenticity, and that never goes out of style.
That is a great takeaway. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question, a little thought experiment for our listeners.
Let's hear it.
If Legally Blonde were made today, right now, in 2024, how would that fish-out-of-water dynamic change?
That was interesting. Very interesting.
Think about it. We live in a world of billionaire beauty moguls. Kim Kardashian is studying for the bar. Social media influencers run the world. If Elle Woods showed up at Harvard today with a massive Instagram following and a personal brand worth millions, would she be the outcast?
That is a fascinating question. In 2001, she was seen as frivolous and superficial. Today, she would be seen as a media empire. She might be the one intimidating the professors. She might be richer than all of them combined.
The power dynamic is completely flipped. She wouldn't be the underdog. She would be the threat.
And Warner would probably be begging to get into her TikTok videos to boost his own profile.
Exactly. It's something to mull over. If you haven't seen the movie in a while, go rewatch it.
And stare at Luke Wilson's wig. You have to.
Yes, spot the wig. Thanks for diving in with us. We will see you on the next Deep Dive.